What took you so long, idiot?
It's time for March now. Springtime weather, longer days, parting seas, riding trains, saving princesses, and driving fast. Some of those are general March things and some of them reflect the movies I saw this month. If you're watching this video, chances are you've seen my other two ranking videos, so I won't need to explain what I'm doing here. In the month of March, I watched a variety of films once again, with a pretty clean split between animation and live action, with some familiar faces once again, including sequels to films I've already talked about, and studios I've covered a lot recently like Studio Ghibli and, of course, DreamWorks. However, before going into these films, I want to briefly talk about the things I wouldn't normally discuss. These lists include feature-length films exclusively, but I want to briefly mention the fact that this month I was able to watch quite a few notable shorts. This included A Trip to the Moon from 1902, which is just brilliant to watch as a film fan because of the pure novelty of it, although the anti-colonialist messages were also quite interesting. Alongside that, I also watched Cops, a Buster Keaton short, which is very simple, charming, and very funny. Puss in Boots: The Three Diablos is also a harmless and adorable little add-on to the Puss in Boots lore, and if you love the films and the character as much as me, there's nothing wrong with checking it out. Speaking of Puss in Boots, whilst it isn't a short, it's also worth mentioning that I also watched The Last Wish for a third time this month, alongside my previous two viewings I mentioned last time. And the quick review for this most recent viewing is this.
I cried through the entire thing and made me want to be a better man.
I just thought I'd mention now that rewatches in the same year won't be included unless any major opinions have changed, as that just feels unfair. Although if you're curious, The Last Wish would still be number one on this list if it was included. Anyway, as for the feature films I saw in March, I managed to watch 14 different films. These films were Sherlock Jr, The Court Jester, Blade Runner, Tomorrow Never Dies, The Prince of Egypt, The World Is Not Enough, Shrek, Spirited Away, Die Another Day, Shrek 2, Ponyo, Kung Fu Panda 3, El Camino, and Everything Everywhere All at Once. Anyway, I've dawdled enough with this intro, so let's just start ranking these films.
Hey, you wanna see something cool?
Die Another Day is agonizingly awful. I knew it was going to be bad before going in, as I knew it was the movie with the invisible car and the god-awful tsunami windsurfing, yet I was still surprised by how terrible it was, and how much I ended up hating it. Literally the only things I liked about it was Brosnan's performance, John Cleese's cue, the sword fight scene, and David Arnold's score. That's literally it. Everything else is boring or terrible. The plot is an absolute mess and I wasn't engaged once. Graves is an absolutely awful villain because he has no menace, and he's also really problematic due to being a Korean man who altered his DNA to become a white dude. Yikes. Also, DNA alteration is ridiculous even for Bond standards. I can accept space battles in Moonraker, a 2-second Tarzan yell in Octopussy, and the tackiness of the man with the golden gun, but this film just has so many stupid things, from the invisible car to the DNA alteration to the second sun and the laser fight, that it is the one Bond film to go too far into ridiculousness. The worst part of this movie though is the direction. I don't know about you, but this entire movie feels so fake. I think it's the colour grading which is a problem, but either way, it never feels like the actors are really there. This is most evident in the tsunami windsurfing, obviously. As a result, it really takes me out of the film, which is why I couldn't engage with the plot and why I was ultimately bored by this film. There's a lot more wrong with this film, but I recommend just reading my overly long review on Letterboxd. Actually, you can do that with every film on this list if you don't already know. Overall though, Die Another Day is terrible in every way. You know it's one of the absolute worst Bond films if it has by far the worst title song as you heard during the transition.
They don't advertise for killers in a newspaper.
Thankfully, the jump up in quality from Die Another Day to this is huge. I just want to establish straight up that Blade Runner is good. However, I'm going to be honest, I didn't really get it much. I wasn't entirely sure what it was trying to say a lot of the time, and I really struggled with the plot. But overall, I think I enjoyed it. It's definitely an incredibly well made movie with fantastic direction, music and cinematography. The themes I did pick up on of identity and what makes us human were definitely interesting, and Harrison Ford gave a great performance. But as for the nitty gritty details, I need to rewatch this film to fully appreciate it. As I said at the start of this video, I'll only include rewatches if opinions have changed drastically, and I have a feeling that I'll probably rewatch this film at some time in the near future, and I hope that means that I'll get an opportunity to change my opinion and talk about it again on another list. For now though, I think it's a good film, but not amazing, but still absolutely worth a watch though. Kung Fu Panda 3 is really enjoyable and I find it quite underrated. However, it does have some issues and is easily the weakest of the trilogy. The two biggest problems with this movie for me are the tone and story. The story isn't that interesting, as it basically consists of Po meeting his dad and vibing in the Panda Village for most of the runtime, and it's just not the most engaging thing ever. However, the tone is the bigger problem. Obviously, the trilogy is inherently goofy from the concept alone, but the comedic moments were usually reined in for dramatic moments and reveals. Whereas here, there's a bit too much comedy and it kind of undercuts certain moments, especially Kai, who is nowhere near as intimidating as Tai Lung or Lord Shen, because there's too many jokes at his expense. Whilst the other villains did have jokes about them, it never felt like it undercut their presence, whereas it does here, which sucks because Kai looks cool, his theme is awesome, and he's voiced by J.K. Simmons. Alongside that, the humour in general feels a bit more kiddie than the other movies. In spite of these flaws though, this film is still very enjoyable. I just love this world and these characters too much to have a major problem with the flaws in this movie, and the final act is absolutely fantastic. Not to mention, this has the best animation out of the trilogy in my opinion. Imagine if Kung Fu Panda 4 looked like a mix between this star and the star of The Last Wish. It will be glorious, let me tell you. Oh, let's not forget that Poe's dad is voiced by Walter White himself, Bryan Cranston. That's epic. Even outside of his epic voice actor, he's a great character and his dynamic with the legend that is Mr. Ping is absolutely brilliant. Overall, this is a flawed but still enjoyable entry in the Kung Fu Panda trilogy for me.
The world is not enough.
Okay, so I don't know whether you guys know this, but for some reason Letterboxd hates Bond. For some reason, so many of their movies have really low scores. With Die Another Day, I get it, but The World Is Not Enough isn't deserving of a 2.8 rating at all. Come on, Christmas Jones isn't that bad. I mean, the pacing isn't great either, and the ending goes on for about 20 minutes too long, but outside of those two things, this is a thoroughly enjoyable Bond film. Brosnan is fantastic, and Elektra is a really interesting character and a great villain. Robbie Coltrane is amazing in this film, and the action is superb. Admittedly, the action does kind of peak with that glorious boat chase at the start, but the other set pieces like the ski chase for instance are fantastic. As a whole, the film is really fun and really enjoyable throughout, and it's just a great film. Yeah, I don't really get why people dislike this film. It's a very enjoyable time and well worth a watch.
Oh, the pellet with the poisons in the vessel with the pestle, the chalice, the palace has the brew. That is true.
Good man.
Just remember that.
Yes, the Court Jester! Woo! Okay, most of you probably haven't heard of this film before, and if you have, it may be because I mentioned it in my April Fool's video recently. The thing is, I think this film is a bit of an underrated gem, and as a result, I kind of want to reference it as much as possible for fun. I mean, it is a great film, so it's deserving some appreciation, but it's not a masterpiece, yet despite that, I still want to meme it. The thing is, I acknowledge the fact that the film isn't perfect as the first half is quite slow, although it does have a lot of fun moments. However, the reason I've obsessed over this movie is purely because the final 30 minutes are absolutely amazing. It is honestly one of the funniest final acts I have ever seen in a film, and as a whole, it made the whole film really enjoyable, and I just want to talk about it as much as possible. Since seeing the movie, I have constantly referenced it because I just found it hilarious.
Get it?
Got it.
Good.
As a film, it's not perfect, but I honestly have so much fun with it that I want to reference it as much as possible. And this is all because it is by far the most epic movie on this list. Joking apart though, the comedy really is top tier here. The physical humour, the comedic action set pieces, the wordplay and Danny Kaye's performance are all amazing. That final sword fight is also genuinely a fantastic piece of choreography. I mean, what do you expect? It's got Basil Rathbone, of course it has a great sword fight. Overall, I definitely recommend checking out this classic gem. Hot take, but I honestly preferred it to the Errol Flynn Adventures of Robin Hood film. I feel like I'm the one guy who will end up memeing the Court Jester more than Shrek. Either way, this film is a classic and we all know why. It's fun, it's charming, it's heartfelt, it's unique, and it's memeable. It's goddamn Shrek. What more do I need to say? I guess I still don't think the film is perfect as the forced misunderstanding is a bit annoying, but outside of that, I don't tire of rewatching it. It's iconic for a reason. I've got literally nothing else to add that the whole internet hasn't already said, so let's just move on, shall we?
Thirsty Bigman in the house!
I absolutely adore Breaking Bad. It has got to be one of the greatest television shows I have ever seen, and it is absolutely worth every bit of praise it has garnered over the years. As a result of this love, I really want to check out El Camino because it is an epilogue to my personal favourite character from the show, Jesse. I will say right off the bat that if you've never seen Breaking Bad, stay far away from this film because it is more of an epilogue than an actual film. However, as an epilogue, it's absolutely fantastic. The finality given to Jesse was everything I could have wanted it to be. It was great seeing old faces like Badger and Skinny Pete again, and the film as a whole was just really interesting. I definitely did find it a tad too long admittedly, but it was still a thoroughly interesting watch with great direction. I'd love to talk about this film a bit more, but that will require spoiling parts of Breaking Bad, which I don't want to do. So instead, let's just move on.
Yeah, no shit, Sherlock!
Okay, I wasn't originally going to include this on the list because I considered it to be a short film. I mean, it is only 45 minutes long after all. However, the Oscars deemed 45 minutes or more as a feature-length film, and Google and Letterboxd classed Sherlock Jr. as a feature-length film, so I guess it counts for this list. Either way, this film was a banger. Admittedly, the story and pacing felt a bit off at parts, and I do still prefer Steamboat Bill Jr. in terms of Keaton films, but despite that, this film is hilarious, inspired, and an absolute treat to watch. The direction is fantastic throughout, especially the cinema scene, and the comedy is absolutely top tier. That pool scene left me on the floor laughing. Not to mention, the stunts Keaton is well known for are absolutely present here, and they are incredible. I genuinely have no idea how these stunts were made, especially back in 1924. Yeah, I definitely recommend checking this out if you want an impressive and fun watch. Okay, so you know how I was complaining about the low Letterboxd rating for The World Is Not Enough? Well, somehow the rating for Tomorrow Never Dies is even worse. Seriously, a 2.9? What? At least with The World Is Not Enough, I will concede that there are flaws with it, but I genuinely can't find any major flaws with Tomorrow Never Dies, outside of the editing being off in a few places and the romance between Bond and Wei Lin feeling a bit forced. But neither of them take me out of the film in any way. This film is absolutely fantastic and you need to stop sleeping on it. David Arnold's soundtrack is amazing, the action is superb, especially the multi-story car park chase, which was glorious. Brosnan is amazing, Michelle Yeoh kicks ass, the pacing is great, and Elliot Carver is a fantastic Bond villain. Alongside the fantastic villain, the plot is really interesting and unique. Instead of being a bog-standard diamond heist, this film comments on fake news with Carver essentially being a media mole stirring up troubles between countries. It's really interesting and makes the stakes feel especially high. There is just so much to love about this film, and I will never understand why people dislike it. Please, please, please check it out. These wholesome Ghibli movies are just too much for me sometimes. Ponyo legit made my cheeks hurt after I finished because I smile too much. And remember, this is the film with all the natural disasters. Only Miyazaki can make devastating flash floods wholesome and fun. The reason this movie is so sweet is mostly down to the characters. Sosuke and Ponyo are so sweet together but also feel like believable kids. The relationship between Sosuke and his mother is also really sweet and genuine, and I just love every second with these characters. Also, Schaefer has already pointed out, but Sosuke's mum is such an irresponsible driver, it's hilarious. I think the messages of this film are also great, like with the way the film shows the various environmental problems, as well as the themes of parenting present through how Ponyo's dad is very controlling, while Sosuke's mum is very trusting. I think these deeper themes are why I actually slightly prefer this film to Totoro, but don't get me wrong, Totoro is still a banger. Alongside everything I already mentioned though, the music is wonderful and the animation is gorgeous. Also, speaking as a Paddock stan, I have to say that I'm sure that some of the art styles for that film were inspired by the look of this film. But who cares about the themes and the look of Ponyo when the film would have had the same rating if it didn't have these things, but just retained the cuteness. I mean, it's Ponyo, it's so freaking cute.
Hit it!
Just like with Shrek 1, what is there to say about Shrek 2 which the whole internet hasn't already said? It is one of the greatest sequels ever made, even when looking outside of animation. It's everything about the first film refined to a T, the animation is better, the music is better, the messages of imposter syndrome are more interesting, and the humour is also better. Seriously, this movie is hilarious and definitely in the top 3 funniest DreamWorks movies alongside Megamind and The Last Wish. Well, that's if you're talking about unironic enjoyment, as B-movie would be the funniest if you included irony. This movie is just so much fun and so rewatchable, yet deep at the same time. Oh, and let's not forget that it features one of the greatest scenes in any animated movie with I Need a Hero. I will definitely go more in depth on this movie at some point in the future, but for now, let's just move on as I haven't really got anything new to add.
Work, terrible work!
From very young ages.
Spirited Away is overrated.
What?
It's still a 10 out of 10 film though. The thing is, I don't think Spirited Away is the greatest animated movie of all time. Hell, I don't even think this is the best Ghibli movie. I think that Princess Mononoke is a better made movie. Oh, and I also prefer Kiki, but that's more so because of personal reasons. With that said though, Spirited Away is still absolutely phenomenal, and I'm sorry for calling it an 8 out of 10 movie last year. This film is just so vivid and imaginative that it is fascinating to watch. The world building is really engaging and the creatures are weird, wacky, but incredibly memorable. The animation is stellar and is able to show both the beauty and horrors of this world. The characters are also fantastic and there isn't a single weak link in the cast. Haku is just a wonderful supporting figure, Yubaba is just someone you love to hate, No Face is iconic, and people like the Boiler Man are fun faces to see. Chihiro is also a fantastic lead. I am astonished at her growth throughout the movie. Seeing her grow from a nervous child to a braver and more mature woman by the end is not only engaging, but is also ridiculously satisfying to watch. Alongside this, the themes of this movie of greed and toxic work environments are also fantastic, and the stuff about work definitely struck a chord with me personally. Another thing this film excels at is the slow pace of the whole thing. This film is less a continuous story, and more so a series of vignettes with an underlying narrative, and I think the imaginative world and great characters help to keep the film interesting throughout. With most films, the action pieces are the most memorable part, but I find it strange that the best scenes in this movie are the slower scenes, like the phenomenal train sequence, one of the best scenes in any animated movie ever. Yeah, Spirited Away is a masterpiece and is well worth its reputation, even if I still think Princess Mononoke is a better Ghibli film, and I still prefer Kiki's Delivery Service. If you've seen my recent video about DreamWorks, then you already know my thoughts on The Prince of Egypt and how much I love it. Although whilst I do adore it, it was really tough deciding whether I preferred it to Spirited Away or not. Trust me, these two movies are practically neck and neck, so much so that I considered putting them together in a tie. But I decided to put Prince above purely because I found myself rewatching clips from this movie a lot more than Spirited Away. And no, this doesn't include the clips I needed for my DreamWorks vid. Which means that I clearly had more of a reaction to Prince and thus preferred it. Anyway, as for the film itself, it is absolutely one of DreamWorks' best films. This film is a deeply mature adaptation of the Moses story, and it doesn't sugarcoat any aspect of it. Yeah, this movie shows the killing of the Hebrew children and the smiting of the firstborns. Deal with it! Man, the Old Testament is really horrific when you think about it. Alongside that though, the Moses story is expanded upon in this film into something really engaging. Instead of just telling the story as it is, this film focuses on an emotional hook through the dwindling relationship between Moses and Ramesses, which is such a tragic story told in an expert way here. We feel every emotion under the sun as their relationship breaks down, and it is honestly devastating. Alongside that, the animation is absolutely off the charts and the music is phenomenal. Not only is Hans Zimmer's score fantastic like usual, but the musical numbers are all brilliant. Deliver Us is the best opening to any DreamWorks movie, Big Boys Now is the best song from any comic relief side character, the Plague song gives me goosebumps every time I listen to it, and When You Believe is phenomenal in every way and absolutely deserved its Oscar win. Yeah, this movie is amazing. I think it says a lot that I adore this movie, yet I am not religious. I think this goes to show how accessible and amazing this film is. Definitely check this out.
That was weird.
Everything Everywhere All at Once was a film I wanted to watch ever since it became the highest rated film on Letterboxd for about a week. It has since dropped down significantly, but I was still fascinated by the film. Then, after seeing its Oscar win this year, I was determined to check it out, and it was absolutely worth the hype as it has not only climbed its way to becoming the best film I saw in March, but also has the honour of being the first live action film to reach the #1 spot in this series. If you don't count my rewatch of Puss in Boots this month. This movie has got to be one of the most unique, wacky, crazy, weird, and wonderful premises for a film. Yeah, sure, there have been movies about the multiverse before, but I love how this film actually has fun with that idea, and gives us crazy universes like the hot dog hands. It makes the film really enjoyable and entertaining. In an age where Hollywood feels like it's run out of interesting and unique ideas, it's really nice to have this film which just feels so fresh. The freshness is helped by the fact that the fight scenes in this movie are really one of a kind, thanks to the idea of different universes providing different abilities, which leads to variety to how characters like Evelyn fight. Not to mention, the way the universes were tied together through the editing was absolutely spellbinding, and just gives the film such a unique style. Alongside that though, the story is really engaging, and this is due to the fact that the characters all feel really genuine and realistic. The realistic dissatisfaction faced by Evelyn, the lovability of Waymond, and the believable struggles of Joy means that the characters are all really relatable, enjoyable, and engaging to watch. This is important because it means that you actually care about the story, and you also don't care when the multiverse stuff isn't happening, as the realistic stuff is still engaging. However, whilst these characters are all great, they don't come close to the greatest character in this film, and that is our Lord and Saviour, Raccacoonie, the greatest character to ever grace our cinematic landscape. Every time he appeared, I cheered. I'm not the only one who thinks this though. I made a community post where I mentioned turning this channel to a Raccacoonie appreciation channel, and it is actually my most liked community post so far, which gives me proof that he truly is the greatest character of all time, and everyone else loves him too. Okay, I'm only half joking about my love for this legendary trash panda. The reason I love him isn't just because he's a fun idea, but it's also because Ratatouille is one of my all-time favourite films, so seeing it referenced in this way just made me unreasonably happy. However, the existence of Raccacoonie leaves me with one question. How the hell did this movie with the talking raccoon, butt plug fights and giant dildos win Best Picture? I'm glad it did win, but this is so off-brand for the Oscars. I love it. Wow, I've really gone off track, haven't I? Ah well, this is a very hard movie to talk about in just short segments, so I recommend just checking it out yourself instead, as I can't really do it justice here. Just note that this is a fantastic movie and my favourite from this month. And that makes up my March viewings. Overall, this was a solid month and definitely more consistent than February for me. Just pretend that Die Another Day never happened, and all the movies here are good at the very least, with the top 3 all being equally phenomenal in their own special ways. What do you think of these movies? What did you think of this video? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to give me any film recommendations based off of what I liked in this list. Anyway, thank you all for watching, give your praises to Rakakuni, and take care. Goodbye everyone.